Hello and welcome to this tutorial on Kansei Engineering Software, Keso software. If you're not familiar with Kansei Engineering and its principles, you would probably want to refer to one of my previous videos here on this channel. My name is Simon Schütte. I'm a researcher at Linköping University within the area of Kansei Engineering Effective Design. So please stay tuned.
Okay, let's go right into it. What does Keso software do? Well, it generates a data collection site which collects your feelings or the customer's feelings about the product, and later on in the second step it will be able to link it to the different product properties. We'll start with demonstrating you the home page or the collection site. This is a typical collection site which I made for this walkthrough. It will start with a welcome. You can alter the text, of course, later on. I will show you everything, how that works. Firstly, it wants your age. These are screening questions, which you can choose as an experimenter, which you later can stratify your data according. So you can have a look how do male or female users look on your products, how do different societal groups, for example, do that as well. The product I'm using here is a product which you are very much used to. It's a toothbrush, so that's why I'm asking also how often do you use or you change your toothbrush, which means that I want a indicator for how familiar you are with the product itself. The more often you use that product, the more often you change it in this case, the more eager and the more good quality you can deliver as data from evaluating toothbrushes, for example. If you would evaluate chocolates, you would ask probably users how often do you buy chocolate and what type of chocolate do you use, or whatever could be an indicator for the expertise of the customer. After these screening questions, we go into the product questions. We have this in between site here, and now it presents different types of toothbrushes or of your product. We can also present sounds or videos. In this case, a picture was or an image was good. And now I'm supposed to rate this particular toothbrush on a scale. So how hygienic do I experience this? Something like that. Cool. Well, something like that. Sensitive. Yeah. Well, good. Maybe advanced. Well, not very basic. Practical. Maybe here cheap for sure not. Then go on and do that with the next toothbrush. The advantage of this type of data collection is that you are collecting the user's data without thinking, and we want to collect the feeling the customers have or the evaluators have here, which means that a quick way to collect data is important. So hygienic, well, okay, cool, not very practical. Yeah, here's something. So you see, I don't think too much. And to do it for the other two samples as well. And the final one. That's it. And now the software has collected your data and you are able to evaluate how I rated, or I and the other users who have been using this data collection site have rated that. However, I think in the next step, I will show you how to create that homepage. And then in the third step, I will show you how to evaluate the data we have just collected. So here we are on the login site. You will reach that on kanseiengineering.net, and you will end up here. This is a login site, as I said. I will log in us as myself. This is, by the way, my mail address. That's working. So if you are interested in more information, you're more than welcome to just send me a line and ask questions or something. I log in, and you see I have a couple of surveys already active. We will start a new one, which we call, well, 2+2 maybe. And save. Now you see we have a new survey. It's called 2+2. It's inactive. We have no participants participating in that. We have today's date and time, and I am the owner of that one. So let's go into it and fill it with information. Firstly, we can alter the text. You might remember when we filled out the questionnaire here before, there was some type of welcome text. This is a default. You can either use it or you can alter it. So we will keep that. Then we get to the demography questions. And here you can see we have different possibilities to do so: multiple choice question, range question, or free text questions. I will go through all of them. Multiple choice question would be the question according to categories. So your gender, for example, how much money do you earn? What's your age? Where are you from? So yeah, well, let's put that as a question. Where are you based in? So that's it. I save it, and now I can add different choices. So I'm in Sweden, so Sweden obviously is one. We can have more, something like this one. We can have others, whatever we would need. The next option here would be a range question. So for example, we were asking you for your age. Please indicate your age. And then we go from, say, 15 to 25. So what happens now? This is a screening question, which means that if you are participating in the questionnaire and you are, say, 30 years of age, you would input 30, and then the software would tell you, I'm sorry, we don't need your question, because sometimes you would limit these people. You would screen the participants, and now we are just looking for people between 15 and 25 years of age for that particular product. So that is the reason for the range question. Finally, we have the free text question, and the critical question is basically everything. If you like to add other stuff, so what color do you prefer, or whatever, what is related to your product. That is for sure the least used alternatives. We usually use these multiple choice questions for screening people, and then we can gather all the data, and afterwards we can decide, well, we just want to have a look on the Chinese participants or the Swedish participants, and then we can click out or click in these groups. So when we're here, we will then go on with your product questions, your semantic space questions. I'm sorry for that. The semantic space is as I explained in the previous lecture, is the collection of Kansei words which describe the products. So say we are back at our toothbrushes and say, well, one would be soft, for example. And that's it. Why do we have the Kansei word and the explanation separately? Well, if you say soft and you should evaluate the principle of soft for a toothbrush, then that might be misunderstanding. I might actually mean the straws on top of the head, or I do mean the flexibility, overall flexibility. So if you need to be more specific, you can specify that. How soft is the head, for example, or the shaft. Then you can see that we have a left label and a right label. The rating scales we had, I showed you, had no limitations on the left and right hand side. So if you think that your users are not used to this type of scales, you can be more specific and tell them this is less what on the left hand side and more on the right hand side of your scale. You could use other words. You could not at all or very much, depending on what you think your users would use. And then you're done, and then you can go on with the next words. A typical number of words. I'm often asked, how many words would you recommend? As many as you would need. But typically, if you use affinity diagram properly, you would actually, in most cases, end up with 10 or 15 words in the end. The next thing is the space of property. Meaning that we are defining what are the properties which we want to evaluate. Preferably we use the properties which we think or which we know that they are the most effective one. For example, the color. Oh. I'm sorry for this. So now it seems good. So the color, and yeah, for these toothbrushes we had a white color, I think. And we would like to blue, say this, we want to evaluate that. That's just, it depends on what you want and what you think is important. And then maybe also the way how it's propelled. And in the experiment we had a manual or two toothbrushes, and we had two electric. Okay, that's it. You could of course add more items and more categories, but be aware that the more categories you put in, the more theoretical combinations of the product can you get, and then it becomes quite cumbersome to fill in the questionnaire. I show you here in the experimental design. I will now define which of the products do we want the users to evaluate, and to have a full factorial design. This means that these are all the possible combinations. White and manual, white and electric, blue and manual, and blue and electric. Those are those. If I have a third question, a third color, for example, then I will get more. and if I have another item, I will get even more. In this case, it can be a problem to use a full factorial experiment. Then you would need to use reduced factorial experiments. But there is a certain risk that if you reduce this significantly, then it might be so that the evaluation methodology afterwards cannot cope with that. Then we need to use other methodologies. If you have a question regarding that, drop me a line. I will help you. Good. With that said, I think we start with the product one. I call it product one because I want to anonymize it, so the user will not understand that is a white and manual, or of course the user will use it, but it's not. The user will not understand that is what we are looking for. Then I can either add an image, a video, an audio, or a description, depending on what I present. So obviously, I can't test chocolates. I can't. If I want to evaluate the taste, then I have to present a real product. But if I just want to evaluate toothbrushes, as in my example, an image will do. A video would be needed if I want to show some type of procedure. Sometimes I want to evaluate some type of sound, clicking sound, door clapping sound for cars, or something like that. And what I do then is I just go to browse. I have it on my desktop here. I think toothbrush pictures, and this one was white and manual, so this one is product one, and I will just save here, and check. Make sure that you save this, otherwise your data collection site is blank. Next product would be product two. White and electric. Same thing here. You have an image. We go back to the browser. White and electric. What the product? This one I added here. Save. Ready. And same thing for product 3. Image, browse, blue and manual, open, save. That's it. And last but not least, product 4, blue and electric. Give me the picture. There it is. Upload. Check. Now we can have a look on the summary. Here we have our demographic questions. Here we have additional product questions. I didn't mention that. That is if you, in the questionnaire, want to have extra questions. Very rarely used, but you could do this. Here we have our list of Kansei words. Just have one. Typically we have more. Then we have our property space, color, white and blue, propulsion, manual, electric, and the products here like that. Good. So now we will execute the questionnaire, meaning that we will send out the questionnaire to the users or to the participants. Before we do this, we will probably want to see how that looks like what we did. And down here we have a preview URL. As it looks in my place now, it does not necessarily have to look in your place, because we are constantly improving the software, so it might look a little bit different, but it will be the same thing. So you see now here, questionnaire, where are you based? I'm based in Sweden. Please indicate my age, and you remember it should be between 15 and 25. Otherwise, the screening will I will not be allowed to get into this questionnaire. And yeah, what is my preferred color? Well, say blue. Next. Good. And now we get to our product questions, and this is the same thing as we did in the first part of the question of this tutorial here. How soft do you experience it? Yeah, well, like that. Then you have the next, like that, like that, like that. Observe, please, we have been using the preview link, so the data will not be saved. Once you use the universal link, this one, you will get here. But if I do this now, I will collect data. So observe that is the difference here. Once again, what we also can do, we can collect our data when we are satisfied with the preview. We can collect our data by sending out a mail to many people, and the software Keso can do this here. So you can upload a list of mail from Excel, for example, browse, upload, and then you can just send it to these people. Here you can also modify the text here, or you go in and send that manually to a couple of people you want to choose manually. Or you use the universal link, which I showed you here. Just copy paste it and send it using your personal mail to people. That depends very much on who you are. Answers, so far we have nothing, and analysis later on. In the next step, I will show you how that looks like. I will go back to the first questionnaire we have been evaluating here. That's the same thing, the same toothbrushes, but we have collected data. And I will show you how we evaluate, or we download the data, how we evaluate the data, and how we interpret the findings. As you can see, we are back in my survey list, and we find the survey for the survey for the questionnaire which I had in the beginning. This is this one, the toothbrush, the original one. I will go to edit, and here you can see the same thing as we have been talking about. We had the age, the gender, how often do you use a toothbrush, and so on. We had the semantic question. Those were the words. We had no labels, or no wet labels, less and more here on the side of the scales. As properties, we had the same thing as we had in our example here: propulsion, manual, and motor. And for color, we had white and other. Yeah, well, the other was blue in our example, but it's the same thing, the same data. The experimental design was the same, the very same we were using here. Products are a bit scrambled now because we have been collecting data, but it's more or less the same thing. As you can see in the summary, once again, demographic questions, we have the practical, we have the semantic space, property space, and then the examples we have been using for data collection. The execution site does not look very different. It's another URL, but it's the same thing. Now we look at the answers. We have 28, if you remember right. This is how the raw data look like for all these people. We can download this later, this as a scale or as a file, of course. We can then have a look in the analysis, and if we would like to treat the data in addition to what Keso can do, it's possible actually to download a CSV file. A CSV file is a file which you can open in, for example, Microsoft Excel. That works well. So you can download the whole data, the original data from the beginning. You might also want to evaluate your data and using Keso, and here you can see that we get that all the questions here, the demographic questions are here. So before we evaluate a new data set, for example this one, we can then choose, well, we are just having a look on the older portion of the sample size, or the younger one. We are just looking on what the women wanted, or how they perceived it, or we can do that just for men. We can have a look on how often you change your toothbrush, whatever. You can choose that according to this. But now let's make an evaluation. Let's have a look how the participants, these 28 participants, have rated the toothbrushes. For this, you just click here and click Start Analysis. Then that usually takes a couple of seconds depending on how heavy the server is used. But if you wait just 2 or 4 seconds, then you will be able to see the result. This is how a result can look like. And as I have explained in previous lectures, if you haven't seen them, so please go back to them. But I will show you this is a typical evaluation how Kansei Engineering would work. Firstly, we will have a look on the different words here, and these words are evaluated according to the MCC, which is called the multiple correlation coefficient, meaning it's a goodness of fit test, meaning that if we are above 0.7 for the MCC square, then the data is acceptable, is good for further evaluation. As you can see, for practical, the data is not valid, so we should not have a look on this result, or not at least use this result for further product development, because it's not good enough. It might get better if you collect more data. It might be the same, might be difficult to rate. I don't know in this case. Anyhow, next thing is that we have propulsion and color here, and then we could see in theory what is for the PCC, what is more important for the rating of practical, and the bigger value would be more important for practical. So this is a minus. The color is less important for practical. Propulsion is more important for practical. Okay, if we go then for the more for the most important, the propulsion here, then we can see another split up here where we have a category score, and here you can see that the motor is perceived to be more practical than the manual one. Seems pretty logical, although the MCC square is not good. So actually, no, don't use this result. But anyhow, it's compelling to see that the results seem logical. Anyhow, let's go for, say, basic. And here we have a very high MCC square. That is for sure a result which we can use. Let's have a look what relates to practical propulsion. Yeah, a little bit, but the color is apparently more related to basic than the propulsion itself. Let's see how that works here. And here you can see that the other color, in this case the blue ones, are perceived more basic than the white ones. In combination with the manual, so you see the motor is negative to basic, so it will be unbasic, so to speak. Manual is basic. So in fact, the most basic impact you get of a white, of the blue and the manual toothbrush. You can go on, have a look on the advanced, and here you can see that the motor version and the white one is perceived to be most advanced. Why is that? Well, we have been doing some extra interviews, and people associated with the motor-driven white toothbrush a dentist's tool, and that's the reason why that is perceived to be advanced. And for the same thing is true for the sensitive as well, and probably also for the hygienic. For the cheap, however, if we go here, then we can see that the blue color and the manual again is perceived to be the most cheap version. Anyhow, this is how it works. You might now think, okay, that's something I could have told you in advance. Yes, you could have done that. This study is just for demonstrational purposes. You can do studies which are much more complicated, more complex with more complex words, which is harder to understand, harder to rate, with more items, with more categories, and so on, and find out what the users want there. Anyhow, for today, I think we finish the tutorial here. This is how Keso works. Once again, if you have any problems with that, you have my mail address, so just drop me a line and we will sort things out. Thank you very much for listening, and have a very nice day.